I feel like the reason that people are able to hate each other is because they don't know each other. But it's really hard to hate someone that you've met. And the more that you travel, the more you're able to discover that.
A couple of months ago, I posted a question on my social media channels. It was the easiest and the most difficult question of all to answer. What's the number one lesson that travel has taught you? Hundreds of people shared their top travel lessons. A lot of it resonated with my own important travel lessons and experiences, good, bad, and otherwise. And they were so good, I just couldn't let them languish. So today I'm sharing your important travel lessons from world travelers just like you. Some of them are entertaining, some are important, some are universal truths that we know on some level but don't really learn until we travel, and some might just change how you travel in the future. Stay tuned for a doozy in the end. It just might lead to world peace. Let's do this. The journey to self-discovery through travel begins pretty much as soon as you start packing, whether or not you recognize it as such. I spoke with somebody recently who said that putting together her packing list for an upcoming trip helped her come to terms with some core anxieties that she had that she was unaware of. We'll get back to that in a minute. The trick is to be open to learning from travel experiences, especially the less pleasant ones. Travel inherently takes us out of our comfort zones, which puts us in a heightened state of awareness and observation, which often leads to personal growth through travel. I was in a near-fatal accident when I was staying for a while on the Caribbean island of Grenada. I would not wish that experience on anybody, but out of it came some incredible lessons about solidarity and priorities, and I gained some precious insights into certain aspects of Grenadian culture as well. Right after the accident, I was completely incapacitated. I basically lived alone at the time in a remote part of the island, and my injuries were bad enough that I was not fully functional. My neighbor downstairs drove me everywhere I needed to go at any time of day or night, without question. And every afternoon for the first week or so, my friend Lucille left her shop that she owned and ran, got her 7 children to take care of themselves, and then she walked 5 kilometers to my place to deliver me food and give me some company. These were incredible acts of kindness from relative strangers, and it's not the first time or place that I've experienced something like this, where I've been a foreigner in a foreign land and been taken care of when I was in trouble. This gave me a deep appreciation of the human connection and our capacity for compassionate action, and it made me a better person because now I pay it forward whenever I can. It also helped me coin the phrase, which might actually be my top life lesson that I learned from travel. Misadventures make for the best stories, with a dose of hindsight and a sense of humor. I'm not the only one who has learned life lessons from unpredictable travel situations. Kathleen says, be flexible. That's a hard one for a control freak. Ain't that the truth? When I started traveling full-time, the slightest deviation from the plan could set me off and ruin my day. I quickly learned that the only way to survive on the road is to roll with the punches and let go of my iron grip on control. I'm not a parent, but my understanding is that having kids will also cure you of any issues you have around control real fast. So step 1 is letting go of control. Step 2 is being open to things going differently. A change of plans doesn't always have to be a bad thing. The most special part of travel for me comes with unplanned surprises that take us in a totally different direction and expose us to experiences that we couldn't possibly have predicted or planned for. That's what happened to me when I arrived in Peru about 10 years ago. I'd booked myself a 2-month stay in the Sacred Valley of Peru that turned into a 2-year apprenticeship with a shaman working with plant medicine. That is definitely not something that you can plan for, but it shaped who I am today. And I'm not alone here. Shannon says when she goes with the flow, especially around unexpected events that she can't control or situations where she doesn't understand what's happening, things go so much better than if she were to try to force some preconceived outcome of what she had in mind. She says this also translates to everyday life at home by having a spirit of adventure, curiosity, and openness. When it comes to dealing with unpredictable situations, one travel tip that I have is to build flexibility into your travel days by not packing too much stuff in. If you need to catch a metro train to a bus station, which then takes you to an airport to catch a flight, build in enough of a buffer so that you can afford to miss the train and or the bus and still get to the airport on time. It makes for longer travel days, but it saves you so much stress when things don't go according to plan, as they often don't, and it gives you a chance to find a plan B. I get more into concepts like this in my video about layover mistakes, so do check that out. I like the way Alyssa said you can only control what you bring, and that everything else is a grand adventure. So let's take a closer look at what you bring. David says pack only what you need and then leave half of it at home. It's similar to an adage that I've heard for years about packing for travel. It goes something like this. Lay everything you want to take for your trip out in front of you. Take away half the stuff. Then take away half again. That's what you actually need. It's a great thought, but in reality, it sometimes misses the mark. I'm pretty good at ultralight packing, and I travel mostly with carry-on luggage only. I've done carry-on trips from 2 days to 2 weeks to 2 years. And believe it or not, I still usually bring more than I need. It's a common affliction. We don't want to be without something that we might need, and it's hard to predict what we exactly will need on a trip that we haven't taken yet to a place we haven't been yet. I'm currently packing for a 4-month trip that requires me to have stuff from Miami beaches, skiing in snowy mountains, and attending a conference in the desert. I need summer clothes, winter clothes, sports gear, and even dressy stuff for the conference. This has been my most difficult pack job yet. But I do have help from today's sponsor. Tripped Travel Gear is most well known for their colorful compression packing cubes. These are among the lightest compression packing cubes that I have tried so far. And there's no sacrifice in quality. The zippers are solid and smooth. These packing cubes not only have a ton of compression, but the solid ripstop material holds everything together really well. They have a variety of different packing cube sets to choose from. I like the carry-on set, which has 2 of these large cubes, which are great for bulkier items that I need for the winter part of my trip. It also comes with 2 of these smaller cubes, a non-compression cube, which is great for miscellaneous stuff, and there's even a roll-top bag here that's perfect for dirty laundry. I also like their designed and patterned sets like this one because it helps you remember what's in each cube, right? Shirts in Yellowstone, workout gear, Grand Canyon. You get the idea. I am also stoked for their toiletry set. I've spent the last few years traveling with a bare bones ultralight toiletry bag that frankly has some shortcomings when it comes to usability. Trip Travel Gear has solved most of the challenges that I have. First of all, this is a nice cube shape, which is easy to pack. And even with it closed, you can access the main compartment here. Let's say that you have an early morning departure and you've packed everything the night before, but you need to use your toothbrush and pack it last minute. Boom. Then it opens up and it hangs anywhere. It's designed to be used daily with cool features like these slots on each side that are perfect for holding a toothbrush and a razor. I also love this separate TSA 311 approved clear bag that is perfect for all your liquids if you're traveling with carry-on. You can just pull this out of your luggage and put it in the tray and you're good to go. If I've piqued your curiosity, I've left links to Trip Travel Gear in the description below and in the first comment. This next collection of lessons learned from world travelers is about interacting with people on the road and different cultures. Stephen believes in trusting local advice, but also double checking. This is good advice because in some cultures, saving face is very important. For example, if somebody is asked a question that they don't fully know the answer to, instead of admitting that they don't know or can't help, they'll formulate an answer that may or may not be fully accurate. Cheryl says, please and thank you go a long way, and I agree. Before I arrive anywhere new, I open up Google Translate and I enter in a few words that I can use as soon as I arrive. Please and thank you are always the first 2 that I learn. Even if you're not good with languages, making the effort to learn just a few words will go a long way to improving your interactions with locals at a foreign destination. Google Translate, by the way, is one of a few apps that I swear by when I travel. Check out my episode about must-have travel apps to learn about all the other apps that I use, some of which have full-on changed how I travel. I'll leave a link below. Bruce says to avoid tourist areas if you want to appreciate and participate in another culture. I agree. But I'll also add the caveat that tourist areas usually exist for a reason, and it's because there's something to see. So don't categorically avoid tourist areas because they can help you understand the full scope of a place, which will help you even better understand the complexities of local culture when you do venture into other areas and meet locals along the way. Eunice wraps it up poetically when she says, every person, every culture has its beauty. Be humble, be kind, and realize that you're a guest in someone else's home. I like the idea of seeing myself as a guest in someone else's home. Venice has in recent years been cracking down on over-tourism, but part of the challenge of that over-tourism and what threw Venice, and to a larger degree Italy, over the edge was the number of tourists behaving badly, swimming in the canals, carving initials into famous sculptures, and trying to recreate famous movie moments like swimming in fountains and driving cars down staircases. Not cool. If we instead run every decision through the filter of how would somebody who lives here feel about this, we might make different decisions. But beyond that, Eunice's observation that every culture has its own beauty leads us nicely into some other universal truths learned from travel. I love what Trisha and Celeste said about understanding through travel that the human condition involves more similarities than differences. It actually reminds me of something my friend Erica says about travel being the key to world peace. I'll share it at the end because I want to lead up to it with a few more travel truths and life lessons. As much as we're all the same fundamentally, the window dressing can be very different. This includes not only physical landscapes like architecture and even fashion and nature, but also cultural practices, cuisines, and ways of life that might be very different to what you've been raised to understand is the way to do things. It's easy to then conclude that other viewpoints or ways of life are wrong. I have certainly learned through travel that words like right and wrong are only reflections of cultural biases, and sometimes a lack of willingness to consider that life is more about shades of gray than absolutes. I spent a few months house sitting in a suburb of Tokyo, Japan. While I was there, I dug deep into certain aspects of culture, and frankly, I did not like what I found at all. I wrote an article on my website about why I could never live in Japan based on these observations that were, of course, based on my own cultural biases. A flurry of hundreds of comments ensued, many from people who live in Japan, expats and locals alike. Some people applauded and agreed with me, and many others didn't. There are more than a few rants in there. As much as I had some strong opinions in the article, it's also important to note a bunch of things. 1, I may not agree with certain practices, but it doesn't mean that those practices are wrong. They're just different. 2, I drew a lot of conclusions about Japan and Japanese culture based on my time in Tokyo. But Tokyo is not Japan, just like Toronto isn't Canada, and LA isn't the USA, and Paris isn't France. They're all parts of a country, but they're not fully representative of the culture. 3, it's okay to have opinions and perspectives and viewpoints. It only becomes problematic when we believe that our own opinions and perspectives and viewpoints are the only ones, or the only right ones. At the time that I wrote that article, I may not have realized the extent to which the world is filled with shades of gray rather than black and white. But Bev's travel lesson resonates for me because the more I see and learn and experience of the world, the more I realize I've only scratched the surface. It's kind of like philosophy. The more you learn, the more you realize you don't know squat. Next, I want to highlight Beth's observation that many of the countries she's visited are safer, calmer, and they treat their elders and their children better. When our only frame of reference is the place we're from, then it's all we know, so it's got to be the best, right? Let's just take the one example of how we treat our elders. In North American society, we do not treat our elders with the kind of respect that other countries and cultures do. It's a combination of social, cultural, and economic factors. For example, there's often a cultural emphasis on youth and productivity in North America being valuable, which can lead to negative stereotypes about aging. This contrasts with cultures that revere the elderly for their wisdom and life experience. I've seen this play out around the world in how families live together and even how strangers interact on the street and in businesses. Now, before I start casting stones at how things are done in North America comparatively, I go back to the universal truths from before. It's not necessarily right or wrong, it's just different. After 18 years as a career traveler, when I encounter a situation, abroad or at home, that doesn't seem right, I'm much more willing to assume that I don't have the full story. For example, instead of getting angry at someone who has behaved badly, in my opinion, I remind myself that I don't know where they just came from, not in a global sense, but even in a more immediate sense of what just happened in the moments before our interaction. In this sense, I feel like travel has made me a more compassionate person. Understanding the things we take for granted is a key learning from travel and being exposed to different ways of life. Patty makes a great point about the power of where we are born. People who can travel are inherently very privileged. We have good passports, we have money, and we have basic human freedoms that a lot of people in the world just don't have. I echo Shane's observations about infrastructure, safety, food, and clean water. Water was one of my big aha moments along the way. I lived in places where I had to walk to get my drinking water, where a task as simple as brushing my teeth or washing fresh produce are a whole other thing when you can't use the stuff that comes out of the tap, if there's a tap at all. Did you know that only 50 countries have clean tap water? That's significant. Whenever I've spent time in these places and then gone back to Canada, I've had a newfound appreciation of a lot of things that I took for granted. And I believe that this has created within me a greater capacity for compassion. The last lesson that I want to highlight before I get to world peace is so good. Through travel, Jen learned to be confident and brave. I'm with you, Jen. When we travel, we are solving problems and engaging parts of our brain that we don't normally use, and we're out of our comfort zone and often conquering fears and anxieties, large and small. I think this is especially true for solo travel and solo female travel in particular. It's very empowering, and the effects can trickle through to all other areas of our life. Okay, I saved the best part for last, and I hope you agree. I was hanging out around a campfire with a bunch of friends earlier this year. My friend Erica launched into a reverie about how travel could actually be the key to world peace, and I have not been able to get this out of my head since. So I reached out to Erica and I told her that I wanted to include her thoughts in this video. She replied with a voice message that I will never erase. She says it way better than I do, so I'm just going to play it for you right now.
We see the world and we only know little tidbits of it. And so for some people, maybe all they know of Asia is Chinese food, and all they know of the Middle East is terrorism, and all they know of Canada are mooses. I think travel is the key to world peace because when you travel, you meet people from all over the world. You go to Thailand and you meet all these Thai people, and you're like, Thai people are like my friend Fawn and Nok, and they're really great people. And when I think of Thailand, I have a clear picture of who that is. And then I'm gonna go to Jordan and I see, wow, these people are super hospitable and they invited me to all these family gatherings. And now when I think of Jordan, I think of my friends Hella and Sally and Dima and their whole extended families that I've all met. And so the more you travel, the more you get to erase these broad generalizations that you have of the world that are highly colored by what our news tells us to think of them. And you start replacing them with real people and real families that you've met. Honestly, I feel like the reason that people are able to hate each other is because they don't know each other. But it's really hard to hate someone that you've met. And the more that you travel, the more you're able to discover that by yourself and see it with your own eyes. And that discovery is what can change the world forever.
Please share your own lessons learned from travel in the comments, and let's keep this conversation going. I'm Nora Dunn, aka the Professional Hobo, and I'll catch you next time.